Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize y'all's neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse shell. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to share your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. With just originally Matt and Todd this week. This is the podcast where we went and saw a movie at our local Regal Cinema, and now we're going to talk about it. In the parking lot, in Matt's Honda Pilot, right in front of the theater. We're going to share our thoughts about this movie. We're going to rate it. And we're going to try to give maybe a little bit of insights of whether or not you should see this movie. Should you not see this movie? Should you stream it? Do you have to make the theater? Should you snack during it? Should you hold off? We're going to try to get on down to business and cover that stuff for you. I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, we're here, just you and me, Todd. The original crew, back together, solo style, duo style.
Yeah.
Whatever. And we saw a movie tonight, and this movie is called Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
This is the fifth Evil Dead movie.
Correct.
That has come out.
And one show.
And yeah, one TV show. So there's no one famous in it that I could detect. I didn't know any of those people.
I am DB'd some of the main, because I was like, I feel like I seen that person someplace, and I was like, I don't know where. I don't recognize any of this stuff.
Right. So you've got some fresh faces on the scene for this one. You got a small cast, as you often do in horror films, and this is that. So, what is Evil Dead Rise about? Well, it's about basically centers around this family, a mom, her sister, and the mom's three kids are in a kind of a decrepit apartment complex, and in the LA area, and there is an earthquake which unearths this ancient book, the Book of the Dead, which sounds like something that you should, more or less leave alone. But as happens, one of the kids finds this book, pulls it out, and decides to read it. And there's some records that go along with the book. It's like an audio book, sort of.
Do you remember what the name of the book was? They said it real fast.
Necronomicon.
Okay, that's fine.
I believe from the H.P. Lovecraft universe of horror things. But they reference it mostly as the Book of the Dead.
Yes.
And so they start to read this book or look at this book. The boy kid and his older sister, or the older of the two sisters, and she's like, this isn't a good idea. And then she's like, close this, we're not doing this. And then he ends up like listening to one of the records, which apparently in like the 1920s, there were some priests who tried to understand the book and translate some of it, and ended up recording what's in the book. And so that gets played over some speakers and some incantations from the book, and things go really downhill from there. That basically summons some kind of demonic forces, and slowly over the rest of the movie, the family is under siege, and one by one they kind of get picked off and inhabited by demons or something along those lines, and become, these supernatural, super-powered killing machines, I'll call them.
It's a fair description.
And basically what you have is, and they don't seem to be killable. Various things happen to these infested peoples, and what is going on?
I don't know. It seems like someone's saying goodbye to some kids in front of us, and there's some major hugging between the dad and the daughter. I mean, not in a bad way. I'm not trying to make it sound like a creep, but there was like, it's still going on. This hug is still happening, and it was like jump up in the arms, wrap the legs around, had to hike up the dress for this. Okay? It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's weird. Well, anyway, basically, the loosely connecting thread between these different people becoming, I guess, possessed by demons is different scenes from the book happen to like correspond to what's happening to the people. So you see someone with worms coming out of their mouth, and then that happens to one of the family members.
Update on the hug, by the way. I think I misspoke. I think it's a guy possibly on a date, and there were 2 kids in the date. The people have separated. The woman and the 2 kids are in one car, and the guy's heading to another car. So maybe it was a date. Sorry, I jumped to the conclusion of father-daughter antics.
Right. No worries. Okay, thanks for that update.
One day we'll finish the intro to this thing, and everyone will figure out what this movie's about.
Right. So it basically dwindles down so that the youngest daughter, the little girl Cassie, and the sister of the aunt of the little girl, Beth, they escape the apartment and end up in the parking garage, and there's a big concluding scene that involves an industrial wood chipper. I won't tell you exactly what happens, but someone or some things are chipped up. And that's the movie Evil Dead Rise in a nutshell. And before I ask you for your gut reaction, Todd, I do have a fun fact about this movie that I was reading today.
Oh boy! All right.
There were used in the production of this film 4,600 liters of fake blood.
Ugh.
Yes. And the cool thing about using the metric system and using liters is that means that we can quickly convert it to megaliters, and it's 4.6 megaliters of fake blood in this movie. So I think that sets the tone for what we'll hear about in our gut reactions.
That's true.
So Todd, what is your gut reaction to Evil Dead Rise?
Okay, so I'm going to say not a controversial statement, but it's going to be contradictory. So just, prepare for this.
Prepared.
I liked this movie, but I hated every minute of it.
Okay.
So honestly, coming out this movie, going into this movie, I knew this movie wasn't for me. I only like the Evil Dead movies that are campy and fun. The first one was weird and it freaked me out, and I know they did another one a couple years ago, and I didn't want to see it. And so, I was hoping that the movie roulette would not come up on this movie, but it did. And I went into this movie knowing it wasn't going to be for me, knowing I was going to be freaked out the whole time, knowing that I'm probably not going to be able to sleep tonight. I would say this movie delivered on a lot of that. It's cringeworthy creepy in a lot of parts that makes me feel uneasy And, you know, if that's what you're going for with a movie like this, you succeeded with me at least. Like, I was creeped out the whole time. I was just trying to prepare myself for the next jump scare. Then I was trying to prepare myself for the next gory scene. I had snacks that I did not even try because I was like, no thank you. I was thinking about powering through them before the movie even started, and I was like, I don't know if I want anything in my stomach right now. But I would assume that's what that's what you go for with these kind of movies. So I mean, like, even though it's not for me and I didn't totally enjoy my experience, it's still delivered on all the things that I feel like you want out of a movie like this. I mean, I would assume it matches the tone of the one that came out a couple years ago. And honestly, I think the most fascinating thing about this movie is that I thought these newer movies were just like reboots or whatever. And it doesn't seem that way. It seems like it's all connected in the sense that, you know, I don't know if this is introduced in the original movie, but there's 3 volumes of this dead book. Like, and so this movie's about a different volume. Like, and so I don't know if like the movie that came out a couple years was about the other volume. There's 3. So we have the original movies, which had 1 volume. That's the book with like the face on it.
Uh-huh.
And then this movie had a book with like weird sharp claw teeth to open it. So I don't know. Maybe if you pump me up enough, we can watch the other one day. But only if you come and tuck me in afterwards.
Okay.
So
deal.
I thought, especially for a cast that had some younger people, like younger actors in situations like this, I thought everyone did a pretty good job. I mean, like, I don't think there was like one totally person who like wasn't doing, you know, well. There may have been like 1 or 2 super side characters who were not in the movie very long that I felt like maybe just phoned it in, but their parts were like super small. But all this main cast, I thought they all did well. They all played off of each well. When it was time to be creepy, it's very, very creepy. And, you know, I think if you like these movies, if you're a fan of The Evil Dead, or if you liked the one a couple years ago, or if you're a fan of horror of any kind, I would say you're going to want to see this movie because I think it delivers on all the things that you want it to. And sure, I will say if you're going to see this movie, I would see it in theaters. And the only reason I say that is that I don't think visually there's anything that makes me go, you should see this in the theaters. It's all about the sound. In the theater, it's just so booming and it's creepy music and it's all timed with great jump scares. It all blended together to make it like an experience that I think they're going for. It's just not an experience that I prefer. So, I mean, this is going to get decent to high marks as much as a movie like this can for me, because I feel like I've said, it just delivers on everything that you want. So, I would say if you're a fan of horror or these movies and Evil Dead in general, definitely go see it in theaters, get the experience. If you're just a regular moviegoer and you're kind of like, I don't know about this movie, probably don't want to see it. It's just my opinion. But if you're a wimp like me, don't see it. But if you're a tough, brave guy, go ahead and see it in theaters. And I think that's going to be where I end it. Matt?
Okay, well. So, there were things about this movie that I liked. You touched on a lot of them. I thought that the sound was really good. They did a great job of making the sound really creepy.
Well, yeah, there were parts of the movie where visually nothing was creeping me out, but it's just the music, and I was like, I don't want to hear this anymore. Like,
yeah. I thought that it's kind of a horror film trope that when someone gets possessed, their voice gets really deep and they start really being very guttural and animalistic. And I thought that they did a better job than average. Like, that still happens in this movie, but I thought they did a better job of kind of blending it with the characters before voice. so that it wasn't quite as like, oh, this is just a demon. This is the character with a demon, and they're there together. I liked the beginning of this movie a lot because it seemed like there was like some nice plot points. There was like a story building, and like things were kind of zooming in. What I didn't like is then we got into, the book and the demons, and that story was kind of thrown
really
by the wayside.
They're like, well, you're fighting demons now, so don't worry about any of the things that we took time to establish before that.
Right. So, like, I almost say, don't take me down that road if you're going to just abandon the road.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't worth it to do that. And you had me. I was interested. I was like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, the dad's gone. Oh, the sister's pregnant. Oh, like, how are all these things going to play into the movie? Spoiler, they're not.
Yeah.
Not in any meaningful way.
Well, and like almost any like horror movie that involves supernatural entities, or like, even thinking about a Jason movie or whatever, there's like almost like a time of like a week to 2 weeks that I always want to be shown after the movie, because I'm always like, how does one go back to life? Like, after something like this, and how does one explain to the authorities what has gone down here? Like, that's stuff that I'm somewhat interested. Maybe it'll ruin the illusion, but I'm like, every time one of these movies kind of ends, I'm always like, I could have done with a little aftermath here.
Yeah. I feel like maybe you're onto something, Todd. Maybe we should make a series of short films called 2 Weeks Later.
Yes.
Based around
100%.
different horror films.
And if we ever get to make a movie one day, the end of the movie is more the beginning of the movie. And then the end of the movie is just the aftermath.
Right. So yeah. This movie is, like, I like horror movies. I like creative ways of killing people in the movies, and there was a little bit of that. There were some interesting things happen.
The cheese grater is going to stick with me for a while.
The cheese grater, the choking on the eyeball,
that was like a nice little callback to campiness. I felt.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, thank you for that. I really needed a little giggle because I'm all kinds of freaking out in my seat over here.
Yes. But I felt like it. I felt like it was almost too much for me. Like too much gore, too much blood, too much wood chippering. It was a lot to take in this evening.
Well, and for me, something I was just like, I think I should be weirded out by this. Like, I don't think this should sit right with me. Is that, not going into super specifics, but there are some kind of like underage people possessed and stuff's happening to kids, and I'm like,
yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that.
Right. And or being completely drenched in blood.
Yeah. That must have been a nightmare to film for the actors, because there's like, everyone in Hollywood says that the fake blood is just disgusting and horrible and sticky and stuff like that, because it's all corn syrup and crap.
Yeah. Well, they need to improve that. So, did I like it? It was fine. I don't think I liked it. It was just fine. Like, this to me was an average movie. And there were some horror elements that I liked. There were some that I didn't like. And I think it really balances out. And I think in general, my feeling is that if you really like gore, you'll like this movie. If you are looking for some kind of connections to other Evil Dead movies, there's not much. There's a little bit. There's a chainsaw comes into play at some point.
Well, in fairness, neither of us watched the movie that came out a couple of years ago.
It's true. It's true. But yeah, so there's a little bit of that.
That doesn't take away the feeling of like too much.
Yeah.
No, thank you, too much.
So I would say I would have liked this movie with a little bit less gore, and maybe I would have liked it more, but because of how much there was, that's too much for me. So I'm going to say I don't think you need to see this, but I agree with you, Todd, that if you are going to see it, take the time unless you have a really good sound system at your house, take the time to go see it at the theater if you want to see it. Because the sound is really one of the best parts of the movie. So, that's what I'll say about that.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, getting down to what the people come for.
Yes.
I think. How many... Let's go with... This is a toughie. Let's do how many bloody eggs would you give this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Which comes into play.
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of something that I want to say. I'll give my rating in a minute.
Okay.
But this movie is one of the worst ones that we've seen in a long time for showing absolutely every plot point in the movie, in the trailer that we've seen 100 times.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, you're going into the movie, you're watching the movie, and you're like, oh, it's this scene. I know exactly what's going to happen. Oh, now we're here. I know what she's going to say. Oh, well, now she's going to notice that someone's behind her in the glass. Like probably 7-8 times in the movie, I was like, well, we know what's happening here because we saw the trailer. They revealed way too much in the trailer.
Totally.
So, that's always a pet peeve of mine.
It's true. And also, we see the trailer so many times that, like, it's, you know...
We memorize them.
It just gets smacked into our brain. And, well, obviously, 0 bloody eggs is the worst because then you have no bloody eggs. 5 bloody eggs being the best because you've got 5 bloody eggs, which, hey, maybe that's your deal. I don't know. I try not to judge.
Maybe you love bloody eggs.
You know, you do you, boo.
Who knows?
Matt?
Well,
take us away.
Well, yeah, and my annoyance with the trailer thing is going to drop my score even further. I'm going to give this 2.4 bloody eggs, so a below average rating. You know, I think probably most people who are not horror films would rate it even lower than that.
Yeah.
You got some points back based on my love for the genre, but I don't think this is a great example of the movie, and it was way too gory even for me. So 2.4 bloody eggs.
The too much gore, that's surprising to me. I didn't think we'd ever get to a point where you would hit that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that there's I think it's too much serious gore. Like if we were campy, if some like a movie that we watched recently, Renfield, there's plenty of gore in that movie, but it's done in a campy, like over the top way where you're almost laughing at it. This movie is unsettling.
Yes,
that we just watched. So I think that's sort of the difference for me.
Nice. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but my rating for this movie is a 3.
Okay.
And it's solely based off of how I feel after the movie.
Okay.
And how I felt during the movie. Like, I would assume how I feel now, how I felt during the movie is what they're going for with these type of movies. So I have to give it props for, doing that. Because we've seen other horror movies where I was like, whatever this is going for, it didn't hit the mark with me. Like Scream, like the last Scream movie.
Right.
So, but everything that's going on in this movie, the soundtrack, the score, the acting, the grossness, the all that kind of stuff. Just at times, not for the whole movie, but at times blended so well together to just make me feel super uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, by that logic, I feel like I've got to give it like a 3 because, and that's following with my gut reaction because leaving the movie theater, I was more surprised. Like, I was like, I did not expect this feeling. I liked it and I hated it, and it's going to be with me for a while. So
you would say maybe that your rating is based on mission accomplished by the filmmakers here.
I mean, honestly, how many times can we say that? I don't think I've ever said that.
Not many.
For the movie review of being like, yeah, they were going for something and they nailed it.
They hit it.
They hit it, and I feel uncomfortable.
I feel uncomfortable. I didn't like what they hit.
Yeah, I didn't like what they
hit.
hit. What they hit is not really for me, but I know there's a huge population out there that's the mark they want to feel. They want their movies to hit that mark. So I got to give props for props too.
Yeah.
You did it.
Well, there you go. Okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed and watched the movie Evil Dead Rise. And according to our gut reactions and number of bloody eggs, 2.7 bloody eggs out of 5 is where our average score ends up, which is just a smidge above average. So if you want to be surprised and also unsettled, go see this movie in the theater for the excellent audio capabilities that are on display. And thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, downloading, etc. Please continue to do these things, and we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.